What is Gucci YouTube? It's your boy Black Uchiha, 3 long face, skinny body, and we are back, still black, of course, with some more fire BORUTO manga related content. Now, before we end the video, you already know the dilly. Yo, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, smash that like button, share the video with your friends. Let's hop to the business, yes, sirski.
9 mountains and 8 seas make 1 world. 1,000 worlds make 1 chiliocosm. 1 chiliocosm to the power of 3, and there's nothing I can't cut.
Now, I really appreciate the fact that I held off on bringing this video to y'all until post chapter 25, because especially for the characters of Eida and you already know the queen, big Sarada Uchiha, right? 2 of my favorite characters within the entire series of BORUTO, hands down top 3. The third person would be BORUTO, but those are top 3 characters right there for me, Eida and Sarada. So the events of chapter 24 allowed a lot of insight, especially in regards to Sarada, her character development, and how we can kind of like picture or imagine her character to be driven or progress forward throughout the rest of the story within Two Blue Vortex. And of course, small insights on Eida, right? The intricacies and details behind her character. Ultimately, though, that's not the main point of this video about everything that 25 expounded upon with these 2 amazing characters. More so the fact that these 2 amazing characters, also including the likes of Mitsuki, who is also one of the most interesting characters for me personally. Not one of my favorites, but the most one of, if not the most interesting characters within the story, just in terms of their dynamic and how Ikimoto is deciding to write this character. These 3 specific characters and their total impact onto the story of Two Blue Vortex is actually astounding, right? They have their fingerprints everywhere throughout the entirety of the story, whether it be in part 1 or part 2, and especially with the earlier part starting off with Mitsuki, you know, adding that mystery element and the gray area in terms of what are they actually going to do with this character, not just revolving around them, the mysterious and strange sage mode we've seen him have. For some reason, he's a perfect sage, right? But the mere fact that he himself is a clone of Orochimaru himself, right? So it's actually a lot of crazy things that go around the character Mitsuki and a lot of misconceptions, right? So the whole entire point of this video is to basically bring to your guys' attention that specifically for these 3 characters, Sarada, right? We got Eida, we got Mitsuki. I'm going to be breaking down the dynamics of each of these characters, right? And how ultimately their place in the story is impacted in not just Boruto's life, but their life, but ultimately the life as the reader, how their story impacts the entirety of the story, right, in itself. And there's a whole lot of ways for each of these characters in every single, in most dynamics, I won't say every single, but in most dynamics, how important they are to the story and how ultimately their choices, actions, or inaction affect Boruto as a character and Boruto as a story. Now, with the obvious regards for someone like Eida, right? She has probably the most OP, if not the most OP, not one of, if not the most OP power within the entirety of the verse. But her goals are so small. Her goals are very grounded, right? And within this fantastical world, I believe she's a great example of keeping us as the reader grounded, right? Keeping us humane, because we know people can blast off these major jutsus, do these crazy fighting techniques, and sometimes we immerse ourselves within this world. It's hard to draw a line between things that we can accept as to like why they were occurred versus things that we can't accept as to why they occurred, which leads to eventual debates, arguments, disagreements within the show. Why a character does do something versus why a character wouldn't do something. But in this regard for Eida, she has, if not the most broken ability within the verse, yet her goal is probably something that you wouldn't really recommend a goal for, especially a battle showman. Not just the fact that it's centered around love, right? But for the mere fact that it's so reality driven and it's so, you know, real world driven that it's actually beautiful writing. And what I mean by that is within this world where people are shooting chakra blasts out of their hands, the main point of one of the most powerful characters with the most broken abilities is to simply find a relationship, whether it be romantically or platonically, right? Essentially, the entire premise around her character is loneliness, right? So diving deeper into that with Eida and her video. And then, of course, with the Queen Sarada, just seeing how her internal struggles, right? And how her insight on the world and how she believes her place and position within the world to be is ultimately affected. Finding that struggle in the balance to accept both realities, right? Career and work versus love life and personal life. Understanding the history behind the Uchiha clan and how their clan specifically is linked to how much and how heavy emotions can affect their yin chakra and ultimately make them stronger through the guise of love or through the guise of hate. And chapter 25 done an amazing job, because I said prior to this, especially after the events of chapter 21, next time we see Sarada on panel is going to be the first step to her new approach in life, right? How her new outlook essentially looks like. And we see her taking these steps when she has the conversation and eventually apologizes to Sumari, but also not back down her feelings and tell her like, AK, these may be the things that initially made you, feel a type of way that how you felt, more, albeit more so my insensitivity towards the actual topic, right? As opposed to her actual feelings, but she still doubles down and says, yeah, regardless of how you feel, Sumari, these are my feelings, right? So she comes through and we know that she's been struggling internally in her accepting herself and accepting her position and her capabilities within this crazy, fantastical world. And there's a lot much more in terms of her and her legacy and ultimately the goal that she's placed in her life for her to surpass. So a lot in that, right? And then obviously when we go down to Mitsuki, the entire sun and moon phase, right? I think for him, it's real life misconception, right? And then I kind of glossed over this with the Eida portion, but him and Eida's story are actually heavily intertwined, interconnected. But Eida is so deep and so intricate that we don't necessarily have to include that part for her whenever we're speaking about her. It's definitely integral and purposeful for her. Now, if this was a solely Eida video, then yeah, we would focus on that. But for the mere fact we're talking about both Eida and Mitsuki, we can save that for Mitsuki's video. So definitely the connection between the two and how I believe Mitsuki, despite being a clone of another human himself, can be the blueprint for Eida to find her true answer. Why? Because Mitsuki is searching for these answers, as we know, throughout not just part one, but throughout the events of TBV, and coming upon not just different answers, but also different questions, which leads to the ultimate question that not only stumbled Mitsuki, but stumbled Eida in her tracks. Why does she love who she loves, right? Why does she do what she does, right? One of the greatest things that I've come across recently, which I'm even having this trouble answering myself, is like, you got to find out what you do, right? What's your purpose? Why are you doing it? And you know what I'm saying? The reason behind all of that, and what makes you want to continue to move forward. So unless you're able to figure out those things, you're just going to be moving around senselessly every single day. And Mitsuki kind of touches on that, especially in the deep conversation him and Eida have earlier on in the parts of TBV, right? Especially about why they're doing what they're doing or why they love who they decide to love. And essentially Mitsuki coming to the conclusion that he has no reason as to why he is as devoted to Kawaki as he understands he is, whether that be just simply Kawaki in his head through omnipotence or Boruto. The main point being that he placed this idea of needing a son within his life in order to operate and move forward. And that is where, the misconstruedness or this disconfiguration actually comes from, not as opposed to whether his son is a positive or negative impact, but the fact that he believes he needs to have that son in order to move forward. And tying it to Eida, where like she thinks she loves Kawaki, but does she actually know why she loves Kawaki, right? And that ultimately answers a major deep question, not just for Eida, but for Mitsuki himself, right? Do you really think that Boruto is your son? Do you know why you want him to be your son? Is it truly the truth of the matter that you actually need a son, right? Boruto brought this concept up to Mitsuki himself after they fought. And I think it's going to be an amazing way to just get better insight on not just Mitsuki as a character, but also Eida and ultimately the end game of both of these characters, because I believe they have a very deep connection, especially after that conversation. Someone like Mitsuki, who doesn't really understand love, and someone like Eida, who is endlessly searching for love, somehow Eida is able to have her eyes opened by someone like Mitsuki, who fails to understand the concept that she's so desperately chasing after. And I don't know if y'all don't see the beautiful writing in that. I don't know what to tell y'all now. I've been getting real philosophical with y'all here on this video, but long story short, Eida, Sarada, Mitsuki. 3 characters that are simply changing the fate of the story right before our eyes, and the writing is actually astounding. So it's your boy Black Shot 3, long face, skinny body. Let me know how y'all feel about the video, and stay tuned, right? Because we got Sarada surpassing legends coming up. We got Eida, of course, revealing the major plot twists surrounding this character. How her change of thinking, her change of mind will drive the story in a crazy direction that we never expected coming. And then, of course, my guy Mitsuki, his true sage awakening, not just referring to the physical capabilities of this guy, but mentally, philosophically, how is he truly gonna awaken and immerse himself within this world that we see all of these crazy events unfolding and happening at an extremely fast pace. But it's your boy Black Chiao. Until we dive more into these videos, until more other videos, stay tuned. Holla at your boy. I'ma holla at y'all. Black Chiao out. Yes, sir. Ski.